Moving on to the final player in our list, and that is Lee's third pick. He is Birmančević from who? Well, I say from Malmö. He's only just gone to Malmö. Do you have any more sort of on? I mean, I've in my list here. I've only got his surname. So Lee, could you tell us what his first name is, please?
Yeah, sure. This is Veljko Birmančević, who is a 23-year-old, so he's right at the fringes of scouted football, relevancy, if you like. Um, but he has only just moved, as you said, to Malmö and Allsvenskan, and he moved from Kukuriki. I'm pronouncing that wrong, I know I am, because I'm not getting the inflection right for Serbian, but Kukuriki in Serbia. Um, I wanted to talk a little bit about Birmančević because he's an example of a player who I have been touting Birmančević to clubs around Europe as part of our consultancy for Total Football Analysis. Whenever a club in Scandinavia, in Belgium or Holland come to us and say, we're interested in finding young players, wingers, can you help us? Birmančević has always been on my list. For one reason and another, the moves never came off for him. I think he's another player whose dribbling stats are absolutely unreal. That's why he always comes up when you do data searches on leagues in Eastern Europe or in general when you're looking for young wingers, because his dribbles per 90 are absolutely through the roof. He's a very direct left-sided attacking player. He likes to pick up the ball on his right foot, and then he moves really quickly into the half spaces and just drives at the opposition. I think that clubs have always been a little bit put off by the fact that his final ball sometimes seems a little bit loose. He's very direct in that he gets the ball and dribbles. Maybe he doesn't interplay as much as he could. Maybe he tries to do too much on his own. But I found it really interesting that Malmo finally, and just for clarity, Malmo were not one of the clubs who I've done any consultancy over, so I'm not claiming any relevancy in terms of this was down to me or I put his name forward, nothing like that. Malmo signed him completely on their own, and it caught me by surprise when they did so because it came quite late, I think. But now he's came into Malmo, to a club who many people think are going to win the Allsvenskan this season and win it quite easily. So he'll be playing in a very attacking setup, very possession dominated under the former Newcastle striker Jon Dahl Tomasson. Newcastle as well as I think Feyenoord and Milan and a few others in there. He's somebody who I expect to have a big impact over the course of the season. But more than anything else, I want to kind of highlight how players sometimes can look really good in certain markets and certain leagues, but for one reason or another don't get the chance to move. Birmančević, as I said, he's a quality dribbler. He's somebody who has a goal threat as well, but he also has really, really interesting defensive metrics for a left winger. He tracks back really well, as we talked about, I think, with Amu and how he needs to add that to his game. He could look at Birmančević as an example of that because he tracks back to help his fullback really well. He blocks passing lanes. He angles his run when pressing the ball to cut passing lanes and to make sure that the ball carrier is put under maximum pressure. And all of these things are signs of a player who at 23 was at the stage of his career where he was going to start stagnating, I think, if he stayed in Serbian football for much longer. I actually fully thought that Birmančević would get a move to a higher level. I was convinced that a club in Belgium or Holland would be the right move for him. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on at Malmo. And if he does do really well, whether he gets another move off the back of it or whether this is kind of his level and maybe I've been wrong all along.
So just to clarify, as I've been allowed to get somebody else to do my homework for me, Lee is allowed to have an axe to grind over players that he's consistently recommended, but but his recommendations have fallen on deaf ears.
They've just been
And
ignored, Joe. I don't understand why. Nobody wants to sign him. For any people who are listening to us though, who play Football Manager and want Football Manager picks, there's one for you. Go and sign him and see how he develops for you.
Yeah, he'll probably still be at Kukariti in the game as well, won't he? Because he only signed for Malmo at the start of March, which I think about players signing for teams in March, and I'm starting to think about the days before transfer windows existed.
Yeah.
It all seems a bit odd, and it all seems a bit alien and a bit weird. But yeah, he signed in March. I think, yeah, in terms of Birmančević, yeah, he's very much at the upper echelons of scouted relevancy, as Lee said. And another player who, I mean, just from on face value, does look like a very, very interesting dribbler. I think I think leagues such as Belgium and Holland, I'd probably agree that there is probably a market for those types of players there, but I don't necessarily think that Malmo's a bad move. I
Yeah.
think that them obviously being, title challengers and likely to be playing European football most seasons is probably a good indicator of his top level ability, and the fact that he's been given for Scandinavian teams a long contract. He's there until 2024, and I think that's usually a good indicator, a hint towards how highly teams in that part of the world rate the players that they're bringing in. If they're giving them 1 or 2 year deals, then it's the onus is very much on the player to display why they should be given an extended terms. But with players such as Birmančević and Benny Traore, who we discussed earlier, giving them long contracts is very much and even Bojgrevnik. These are players where they've been given a long contract to protect their value. They're very much seen as assets who the club can't afford to lose, but are very accepting that if they did have a very good season, then they would have the leverage to say, well, he's got a contract for another 3 years, you're going to have to pay up.